For Neisseria meningitidis, the specimens are either going to be CSF, blood, petechial aspirates, biopsy samples, or a pure culture of the isolate. And we have a note here for you can consult the Guided Laboratory Services for further details on that. The transport media for this is going to be chocolate agar, Ames, Stewart's, or equivalent transport media. That's going to support the growth of Neisseria meningitidis. Shipping, it's very important not to refrigerate these. Turnaround time of 5 days. For pertussis, we're testing for pertussis and parapertussis. The specimen of choice is going to be secretions from the respiratory tract collected from the posterior nasopharynx. So specimens collected from the throat are not recommended. It's also very important to note that no cotton swabs, only polyester are accepted. This is definitely going to come into play when we bring on board the pertussis PCR. But if you are getting the kits from us, we're sending you the appropriate swabs. So for pertussis, the specimens are going to be the MP or your nasopharyngeal swab, and you want to collect these as close to the onset of cough as possible and before any antibiotics are administered. So specimens collected up to 21 days after the cough are acceptable, or the cough onset, and you want to be transporting these on either Reagan-Low or Ames with charcoal. For shipping, on ice if possible, which means you have refrigerated temps during transport. Turnaround time is going to be 11 days, and for this one, please call prior to submission. Here is an instructional overview of how to collect an MP swab. We've listed 2 websites at the top of the screen that are additional guidance documents for this. And we are sending an instruction sheet with the pertussis kits when you order. Okay, for visas and versas, the specimen is going to be a pure culture of the isolate. Transport media is going to be anything that's supportive culture agar, whether it's blood agar, anything that's going to support the growth of the Staph aureus. Shipping is going to be room temperature, and outbreak investigation samples are only accepted. Clinical samples are not recommended. Turnaround time will be 5 days. All right, for enteric cultures, unless you are otherwise requesting it, enteric stool samples are being tested for Shigella, Salmonella, Campylobacter, and Shiga toxin-producing E. coli. Available upon request, we can test for Eromonas, Plesiomonas, Yersinia, and Vibrio. So keep in mind that raw stools need to be refrigerated and plated or cultured as soon as possible. Otherwise, you want to put the stool or the swab of the stool into Carey-Blair transport media as soon as possible. This is the preferred method because a lot of times you can't plate out the stool immediately, which is the best choice. All right, for the difference between enterics versus norovirus. Norovirus testing can only be performed on unpreserved raw stool. And for enteric testing, enteric samples can be raw stool, but it can also be plated stool, broth, or isolates, or the stool in a supportive agar, such as Carey-Blair. So raw stools must either be inoculated or tested as soon as possible. And then a really important thing to keep in mind is that if you are unsure, based on the symptoms of the patient, what you think you want to test for, whether it's norovirus or enterics, you can always just collect 2 samples. You can send in the raw stool for norovirus testing, and then you can send in a stool in the Carey-Blair transport media for enteric testing. And then similarly for enterics versus parasites, stools for parasite testing must be collected and preserved in the PVA and formalin, which you see on the bottom right-hand corner. And then we cannot perform enteric bacterial or viral testing from that culture media. So again, if you're ever unsure, you can always just collect 2 samples and send them in. For Shiga toxin-producing E. coli, we are accepting stools, broths, or pure culture of the isolate, and we are recommending that you send multiple samples for this. These can be transported on the Carey-Blair or supportive agar if you have it currently growing on something like a enteric auger like a MAC or HE, or even on a blood plate, we will accept those too. So shipping will be refrigerated temperatures, turnaround time of 10 days, and we'd also like to comment that freshly passed stool is preferred over rectal swabs. For salmonella serotyping, you can send in pure culture of the isolate, transported on some type of supportive culture auger, whether that's a HE, MAC, enteric auger. You see on the bottom left an HE plate, whatever is supporting the growth of the organism. So shipping will be refrigerated temps. Turnaround time for the salmonella serotyping will be 14 days, and this does follow the general enteric testing panel procedures. So same for Shigella, send in a pure culture of the isolate on some type of supportive culture media, shipped at refrigerated temperatures. Turnaround time is a little bit less, of 5 days, and this as well follows the general enteric testing panel. Okay, for Vibrio, you can send in the stool or pure culture of the isolate, transported on Carrier transport media. These are shipped at room temperature, though. Do not refrigerate these. Turnaround time will be 5 days, and this is something that's not included in that routine enteric panel. This is available only upon request. And also keep in mind that the shipping temperature is different for this than it was for the Salmonellas and Shigellas. All right, for Yersinia, and we're talking about non-pestis Yersinias, you can send in stool or pure culture of the isolate, transported on Carrier transport media, shipped at room temp for this as well. Do not refrigerate these. Turnaround time will be 5 days. And again, this is something that's not included in the routine enteric panel. It's available only upon request. Okay, if you were suspecting something like Yersinia pestis or any of the other select agents, those are going to be select or suspect BT samples, and prior notification is going to be required before submitting a sample. So you can consult the Guided Laboratory Services for further details on BT samples, or you can always just give the BT lab a call. The phone number is at the middle of the screen. And these are going to be organisms like B. anthracis or anthrax, Brucella species, Burkholderias, Coxiellas, Francisella, and pestis. The avian influenza test is available upon request, and you can either consult the BT laboratory for questions or the virology section for questions.